Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
Welcome to True Strike's very first short rest.
Howdy, folks. We are back from Gen Con 2023, and we have all kinds of stories and things we want to talk about. Like how, out of everything Tyler could have brought back as a souvenir, he somehow landed on COVID as his top pick.
Look, it was going to be some kind of Con Crud, and I got a natural 20.
I mean, look, I feel fine, right?
Yeah, I brought home more than you, see? Haha. I'll
Yeah.
call it a win.
I just don't know how you could have gone to an entire 14-hour car ride of breathing in my general direction and I don't get sick. So, did it come from the con? We don't know. But there were 70,000 people there.
Yeah. Well, it's not like we know anyone else that was sick.
Right?
But,
wink, wink, nod, nod.
as you guys may have noticed, this is, like I said, this is a short rest for us. So it's kind of a week off, but we didn't want to upload nothing and leave you guys in the dark. You know, we upload these videos every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we wanted to at least go ahead and give you guys a preview of what's to come. And yeah, so here's Richard with a few things to expect from us in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and I guess we should say that it's not like we planned for this short rest to have this episode. We were actually planning on having a full-fledged episode of talking about Gen Con because both of us were very excited to go to Gen Con, very sad to come back from Gen Con. We have a lot of opinions and a lot of things to talk about with it. But with things the way that they are, unfortunately, me and Tyler being in the same room, and him continuing to breathe on me with the COVID breath is not the best plan. Plus, he needs lots of rest. He needs that beauty sleep to get himself back up and going. So this is our first short rest episode, which is just that. We're just going to kind of give you guys a little teaser of the episodes that we have coming up because we have some really fun stuff that we're going to talk about. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. And our next episode is going to be what this episode was supposed to be, which is our Gen Con main episode. So we'll be talking about Gen Con in general, this being our first Gen Con each. What we expected from the con, what we got from the con, what we would do different when we go back next year, because we are 100% going back next year. At least I can't speak for Tyler, but I think I speak for both of us when I say we're going back, right?
As long as I'm not still positive with COVID in approximately 360 days, yes, True Strike will be at Gen Con 2024.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to miss it, and in fact was already talking about what we're going to do, like before we were even out of the parking lot that we were parked at for the weekend. I think we started discussing how we would want to do Gen Con next year. So that's going to be our next episode. After that, we have a really fun episode coming up about Dread, a game that we played at Gen Con, which is a diceless style RPG adventure. And we're going to talk about diceless RPGs in general, as well as a crossover with a friend of the podcast, Monster Game Night, which
Yes.
Tyler talked to. That's super exciting.
Yes, Mike from Monster Game Night Podcast was our DM for Dread, and we'll get into more of that soon. But shout out to you, Mike. You're awesome. Can't wait to talk about our experience with your game. And then after that, you know, a week or two or whatever later, can't wait to talk to you on the podcast.
Yeah, that's super exciting because we did talk to him a little bit about his podcast and we listened to their stuff, and it's going to be super great to have somebody on to discuss, you know, something different than what we normally do. So super excited for that one. Next, we have an episode where we're going to be talking about Pathfinder and Starfinder. This one is super exciting. We got to see some really cool stuff in regards to Pathfinder and Starfinder. I'm hype for this one.
You know, I guess we'll get to it soon, but you know, maybe Richard's converting. Who knows? I guess we'll see. I definitely
Converting.
I had a great time speaking with Rue Dickey from Paizo at Gen Con, and we're going to talk about some of the things that they and I spoke to about. And we'll dive into some of this new stuff coming out. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. And yet again, we're talking about future guests and stuff. Hopefully in the future here, we're looking at having Rudicki come onto the podcast too and tell us more about what they have in the future.
Yeah, the stuff that that was discussed at the convention and the stuff that you told me about, I wouldn't say that I'm ready to convert just yet, but I would say that I am super hyped for this episode, and I want to talk more about it because there's a lot of really cool stuff going on there. And I definitely do want to get into running a couple of games of Pathfinder or Starfinder. I would prefer Starfinder, but that's just me. I got to convince you guys to play Starfinder.
No, hey,
you
don't got to convince me much, man. First off, I love all TTRPGs and the idea of, I've got my bias and my favorite, of course. This is a Dungeons and Dragons podcast first and foremost, but I do love looking into other systems and how they run things, and Paizo's definitely doing some really cool things for their community. And the idea of you running Starfinder is kind of a cool, like, we get to play Pathfinder without playing two fantasy games. You know what I mean? We can keep our fantasy at the table, Dungeons and Dragons, but make our sci-fi, kind of this Starfinder, or, fantasy in space, whatever. But like, it's cool. There's like a separation there while still playing both games.
Yeah, and I mean, I love fantasy, don't get me wrong, but sci-fi is kind of like my jam. I really like that stuff. So, like I said, I'm very excited to be looking into that. And then lastly, we have another episode that we've also talked about, which is not really D&D related, but more Gen Con related again, and that's just talking about games, because we did pick up some new games while we were at Gen Con. Of course, there's all kinds of stuff to see, there's all kinds of stuff to play. These were some of the games that we talked about on our list that we did for our pre-Gen Con, stuff that we were looking out for. We actually got some of those games. We didn't get all of those games, but we did get some of them. Some of them are Dungeons and Dragons related, like the one that you bought. Mm-hmm. Some of them are just Dungeons and Dragons adjacent, like Darrington Press games. So, but yeah, we want to talk about some of those, and we have some games that we didn't even have on our list. So some stuff that while we were walking around the show floor, just kind of jumped out at us. Stuff that we saw that we had never heard of, that we just picked up or demoed, and turned out to be really great games. So yeah, we have a lot of really fun stuff that we do want to talk about, but the way things lined up, we just couldn't get it all done today in this week, with everything the way that it is. But we didn't want to leave you guys hanging, so that's why we decided to jump on a quick call and do our very first ever short rest episode. Not a full-fledged episode, but just a little bit of something to keep you going and maybe get you a little bit excited about things coming down the road.
Exactly. And thank you everyone for even checking this out. We promise we'll have everything back up to full quality next time me and Richard can be in the room together, breathing each other's hair once again, and give you guys the quality and lovely content that you've come to expect from us on a weekly basis. But for now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
And we've been True Strike. Bye.
Bye.
Hey adventurers, thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Threads or Instagram. New episodes released every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike. Short rest.
I don't know, I kind of like this voice. Is this going to be your next character?